All right, howdy. Welcome back to the RedAss Podcast. And before we get started, I would just like to say, you'll never walk alone, ladies and gentlemen. We are back atop of the table. Thank goodness.
97% of the people listening have no idea what that means. Dude, I'm fired up, man. We just got the last rankings last night.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, hey, Roy May, Gig'em, howdy.
Howdy.
Yeah, whatever. Just got the last rankings before the conference championships, before the final weekend, really. So
right.
The next to last rankings. Both of us watched Premier League today because it's, and
oh, yeah.
If you don't watch Premier League, I'll tell you that the games come hot and fast in December. It's about a 30 to 40 day window where you just play a ton of matches.
Yeah, I think they said over the next 17 days there's going to be 40 matches, which is just absolutely insane to me.
But it's so great.
Oh yeah,
it's enjoyable to watch for Premier League fans. So we got a ton of matches coming up. The rankings just came out. We've got football that once again is relevant to us this weekend.
I know. Crazy.
Last weekend's football, there were some weird results, but the only thing I care about is that Army beat Navy.
Yeah.
The UNC Miami score was insane.
Yeah.
Miami forgot that they had a football game.
I forgot. They must have forgot they had a shot at an outside shot at a New Year's Six bowl. What were they thinking?
Yeah, that was
flat-footed.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, very much so.
But we got a lot to talk about. We're heading into a conference championship weekend.
Very busy.
We get to play on the same weekend, even though we're not obviously in a conference championship game, but we have a chance to kind of put our final stamp on our regular season. And not that it, depending on the talking head, the pundit, the writer, it may or may not do anything.
Sure.
But we do have a chance to really go against a bad Tennessee team,
which they are.
They are. Even Tennessee fans would tell you they are. But we have their opportunity to really put one last stamp on this season. And for all of the Jimbo doesn't do style points narrative, I think this might be one where he maybe looks at a couple extra points here or leaving the starters. Well, against Tennessee, I don't think you need to leave the starters in longer to prove a point and score. So
what I would like to see out of this game, and probably not a whole lot of discussion that needs to happen about Tennessee this week, but I mean it's pretty straightforward what A&M's goal is. You just simply have to go and win the game, and comfortably, and that would be ideal.
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, convincingly,
as Dan Orlowski always loves to say. But I mean, I think it's safe to say for Texas A&M, the goal this week is to win and to show on championship weekend, hey, we get to play a game on championship weekend. Granted, it's not in Atlanta like we would like it to be.
But given how this season is completely weird, the fact that we do have an opportunity to put literally the final bow on the gift, and just... So it's... What you want to see is a wire-to-wire kind of thing, outside of like a fluke play or a fluke penalty. It's going to be... You want to be wire-to-wire. You want to win by 3 touchdowns or more. None of that backdoor cover stuff.
No.
In the fourth quarter. And this is one where, and I get it. Like, you don't want to leave your starters in too long because, again, risk of injury, you still have a lot to play for. And you still have a lot that may, depending on how the chips fall, like, we have a ton to play for.
That's very true. I look at this game, and I think that Texas A&M football seriously needs to take a very South Carolina approach to this game. And as in
fire. No, different. Okay,
no, sorry. different one, different approach.
Okay, my bad.
But you go in with the thought process that we are going to play a complete game. We are going to limit our mistakes, go out there and just show what we are, which is we are the superior team on the road. Granted, I get it. Tennessee is not top-notch competition, and they looked good against Vanderbilt, but virtually anybody at this stage of the year better look good against Vanderbilt.
Well, and you say the South Carolina approach. You know what I want to see? I want to see the fourth quarter of Auburn for 4 quarters.
That would be excellent.
Because you got to realize Auburn was giving up about 160, 162 a game on the ground. We ran for 313. And in the fourth quarter, we decided that we were just going to win the game, and they weren't going to score.
No.
So we all saw it. We all watched it. Again, a lot of big-time fans don't look at stats, but the stats that came out of that fourth quarter and really that entire game were phenomenal.
They were staggering.
So the South Carolina approach is great. I want to see the fourth quarter of Auburn for 4 quarters. If we do that, even without trying, we'll make it an incredibly lopsided kind of win. Like, dude, if Tennessee scores 7 or 10, but you get 50,
it doesn't matter.
It won't matter. I mean, that's a convincing win.
Yeah,
right?
but say you give me the offensive performance of South Carolina, the defensive performance of LSU, and just the overall fourth quarter presence that we had against Auburn in a game. And I think that just for the sake of what the committee is probably looking for on this last weekend, which we know more than anything, they absolutely suffer from recency bias. It is important for Texas A&M to go out there and show that we belong there. Well, none of this sneak in and win it the last second crap.
Well, and I think you took the South Carolina and the LSU, kind of the offense defense side of the ball.
Sure.
If you put that together, I think. Yeah, because that's where I'm thinking right now. I think that literally is the fourth quarter of the Auburn game.
It is in a lot of ways.
And that was just one of the most dominant 4 quarters, any quarter of football I've seen in a long time. But when you talk about, coffee is for closers, the fourth quarter is when you shut teams down. So what I would like to see is, I want to see that quarter for 4 quarters against Tennessee, who is nowhere near the talent that Auburn is.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, I get it. The Auburn fan base is really weird and fickle, so they canned Malzahn. And Gus Malzahn's going to make a lot of money for a lot of years coaching football because he's really good at it. Auburn, if you're an Auburn person, you're sick of losing to Bama, right? You're just done with it.
Well, and I've been listening to a podcast recently.
Hopefully not ours. It's terrible.
No, ours is just
ours is it's terrible.
But there's a guy he runs 247. He does this show called The Late Kick, and he was talking about Auburn. And obviously we're not going to get too deep into Auburn football here. But one of the things they said that I found was really interesting was Auburn, pound for pound, is the most difficult coaching job in the nation. And the reason why is because not only are you having to play Alabama every year, but from a recruiting standpoint, you're having to deal with Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas A&M, who are 4 of the consistently high recruiting teams. And the fact is, those 4 teams are going to be 4 of your 8 SEC games every single year.
Well, and to an extent, if you're dealing with Georgia, you're also dealing with Florida as long as they're playing well with Mullen. And which
right.
I think Mullen at Florida is a great fit. I don't know that he'll ever get over the hump and win a national championship, but that is a legitimate recruiting threat.
Sure.
Especially in the Sunshine State, which, holy crap, Florida produces so many recruits, right? So many top-level recruits. So it's Auburn, man. You want to talk about a rock and a hard place?
Yeah,
it's being the head coach of Auburn,
no doubt.
But again, like we said,
right.
Auburn's talent, even as difficult as things have been apparently to the boosters at Auburn to fire Malzahn,
right?
He clearly has the talent.
There's no doubt.
He can recruit. You can recruit at Auburn, and oh, by the way, Malzahn, I feel like he's won some pretty important games.
I mean, he has beaten top-level Alabama teams. He's beaten Georgia teams. He was a part of that whole... that whole 2013 where it just felt like every bounce went their way.
Yeah, but you're talking about the last 2 Auburn coaches have been fired, and they won national championships at Auburn.
Well, one did. Malzahn never did.
Or excuse me, but again, like...
They were in the game, though.
In contention. Like
they made it there.
It's insane. So... I don't know, man.
There's a level of expectation at Auburn football that, frankly,
it's weird.
It is a little high. And that's not to say that they're not a good program, because they are. But you look at who your recruiting rivals are and who you're consistently below.
I think it's fair to say that the level of expectation at Auburn, I'm completely fine with.
Sure.
Except for while Saban is at Alabama.
Yeah, you're just not going to get over that.
If Saban's not at Alabama,
no.
I don't think he gets fired. I don't think So I understand, because no matter how good or how well you do, 90 miles from you is the perennial just example of what you want a program to be. So there's a ton of pressure from the old donors that just can't stomach losing to Alabama. It doesn't matter if Nick Saban's their coach or not. They just losing to Alabama isn't going to work. And what's crazy is Malzahn's beaten Alabama more than any other SEC coach.
He has. And I mean, in key situations, they just found ways to do it. So it's weird. and they kind of have that weird vibe with Alabama, but they just aren't on that same level.
But you know what's great? Kevin Steele, man.
Yeah.
Huge fan of that hire, and I'm not an Auburn fan, so if you're an Auburn fan, you should be concerned that I'm a huge fan of that hire. The dude was like 9-36, his only stint as a head coach. Thank you. Please, absolutely, give him the wheel.
All the money, please.
So
I did. Yeah.
Again, we're not going to talk a lot about Tennessee.
No.
I expect a dominant performance. I would love to see a blow the doors off performance.
Of course.
If this game is close, then none of anything we talk about is going to matter anyways.
So I did want to kind of jump into what happened last night. So we wanted to intentionally delay this podcast this week and kind of get an idea of what the playoff rankings were going to look like going into the final weekend.
I thought we were talking about my Freebirds order from last night.
Oh, how'd that go for you?
That was a thing. I love Freebirds.
Was it good? What'd you order?
Always a monster on cayenne, seasoned chicken, and then basically everything that they have, all of it, plus queso.
Load it. Yeah. Load her down. So, safe to say, going into this last playoff ranking, we had...
I don't think there were any surprises, though.
There were a couple to me.
Well, I mean, I'm talking to, like, the top five.
Well, no, top five, not so much there. But there were a couple things that struck me that I think just kind of really told you what the committee's thinking.
Can I take a guess at the first one?
All right, what's your first one?
Florida only dropping a spot.
Well, yeah, no doubt. I mean, the fact that... Okay, so let me go ahead and throw my shoe at this. Florida...
Well, you better be 20 yards away because it was impressive.
Hey, he was towing the line. Florida, good Lord Almighty, you played a terrible, no good, very bad LSU football team that Alabama ran out of the building in the first quarter, and you lost to them in the fog on a 57-yard field goal because your dumbass player felt the need to chunk a shoe 20 yards down.
Well, here's my thing. I want to separate these two incidents. The throwing of a shoe makes you no longer a member of a team. It makes you a football player and with no regard as a teammate.
No.
So that was one of the most selfish, stupid things I have seen ever. And we all saw the memes where the shoe said the playoff
chances,
yeah,
right?
And he literally threw it down the field. At the same time, kicking a 57-yard field goal in that condition was
stupid.
It would have been good from like 65.
Yeah.
But it's just it's weird how things happen in sports, right? The greatest stories come from sports, and this is another. I mean, if you're an LSU fan, it's a great version. Good buddy of mine, old Tomb Guard buddy of mine, a big LSU fan, and we were kind of laughing about it the days before. He was like, "I hope we just forfeit the game," because he knew what was coming. But that's why we watch the game.
This is why you play it,
and that's why we play the game.
Right.
Let's take that statement. We're going to put it on the back burner. We're going to come back to why we play the games.
Right.
But that LSU kicker doesn't kick a 57-yard field goal if moron from Florida doesn't pull a cleat off and throw it down the field. Because if he has it's how sports goes.
It is.
If everything had been right and he had a 57-yard field goal, to pull, it wouldn't have gone in. It just wouldn't have happened. But
this literally boiled down to karma.
It
was absolute karma.
I don't believe in karma as a whole, but man, sports karma is
real.
And So and honestly, and then your kicker had a chance and had a slightly closer chance.
He had a better chance. He blew it.
But I mean, let's be honest. You can see from the cameras. I mean, could he even see the field goal post?
Well, I mean, the crazy part. I mean, just absolutely wild game. And even had Florida won that game. The national pundits, I mean, they have been on A&M's ass basically since coming back from quarantine. Well, A&M has to win convincingly. This was not going to be a convincing win late in the game for Florida anyway.
Right, but it would have been a win, and what it would have done is kept Florida above Iowa State. That would have been the only thing.
And I want to get into that later.
Now, the separation between us and Florida would have become even a greater chasm.
Right.
And it probably pushed us closer to Ohio State because despite the garbage loss, not a garbage loss, the loss to a garbage team, a really garbage program. Not that the LSU program is garbage, but right now, there are some flames that are in a dumpster. Currently, they're being contained, but it's not good.
No.
And it doesn't have a lot to do with football, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what you have was, all they had to do was beat LSU. And I get it, wouldn't have been convincing, but their record would have tied into our strength of record. So, at the end of it, I'm just more pissed at Florida than anything. In fact, I'm really just pissed at the defensive back.
Right, true. And I think you look at, well, one thing I will say, you mentioned strength of record. And it was interesting to me when the metrics came back out about that again, because they always like to show those in the show.
Yeah, but they don't ever talk about ours. They just show it and then they move on.
Well, they showed ours. Exactly. They don't like to talk about it because, God, it would only make too much sense.
They don't even address it.
No.
What's upsetting is they put up that metric, and we've all seen it, where it's like 3rd and 9th on like strength schedule and like adjusted strength of schedule, all this other crap.
Right.
And all 4 teams above us have lower numbers in all the categories, or higher numbers depending on how you look at it.
Sure.
But they're just like, yeah, check it out, awesome. So let's talk about Cincinnati. And you're like, what the?
Right. Well, it's because I don't think that there's a legitimate like bias at ESPN, honestly, against A&M, so much as it is pro the fact that you look at the 4 teams that are at the top of the
Pro
playoff
Big Ten
right now.
and it's pro Ohio State.
Well, it's pro Big Ten, pro Ohio State, but it's also pro money. I think one thing that really does make a big difference for the playoff committee, and they may not ever say it, this may just be me talking about my ass.
If they ever say it, then shit goes down.
But I think there's a very real concern that when it comes down to playoff ranking, and honestly the teams that are there at the top, it literally comes down to who is going to net the networks more money as far as a matchup. Let's face it. Right. Would you rather watch Alabama play Texas A&M again, or watch Alabama play Ohio State? Or even better, here's the other thought process. Let's say Clemson loses that Notre Dame game, but Clemson only falls 1 spot. How much do you want to bet ESPN is 100% behind having another Alabama-Clemson rematch?
Well, but here's the problem, and they have really kind of put themselves in this situation, which I think is the right situation. Clemson will have 2 losses at that point, and there comes a point where you cannot, again, assuming we take care of business, and we don't need like a last-second field goal to beat Tennessee.
No, we beat them.
Just beat them by 14, and you're good because you have 1 loss. Clemson lost twice to the same team. At no point does anybody want to see Clemson again, because here's the catch. Clemson lost without Sunshine, and then they lost with Sunshine.
Right.
So, like,
on a neutral field.
What's the point at that point? There's no reason.
There wouldn't be.
So, Ohio State is in, barring any sort of Northwestern miracle, which won't put Northwestern in.
No, it won't put Northwestern in because they're all the way at 14. There's just no way they're going to jump that.
But
high.
Ohio State, and this is one thing I want to kind of talk about tonight, so I'll just pop into it.
Jump on.
And again, let's go back to that. Why we play the games, right?
Right.
Ohio State is fantastic at dropping a game they never should. It reminds me of like when the Sips and OU are just overpowering the Big 12,
right?
And they have one Saturday where you're like
a Kansas State or whoever.
If the Sips had been in contention for the title this year, realistically, not I need Iowa State to get COVID contention, but had cemented themselves in the playoff, you still would have looked back at that Texas Tech game and said, man, it took a lot for you to beat Texas Tech.
And Texas Tech is bad.
Oh, they went bye-bye to bad in like game 4.
They were bad.
3. So
you didn't get a chance to play Kansas. Yeah, granted, I understand Kansas is awful.
Well, which is crazy. I feel like they would have wanted to play that game.
You would think.
Yeah, well, cowards are going to be cowards. But here's okay. But let's go back to so it's why you play the games. And Ohio State loves to drop a game they shouldn't, or play like a 2-6 or 2-7 crappy Big Ten team, and it come down to literally a last the 2-minute drill kind of score a touchdown to eke a game out, and then we go into the convincing thing. So, but Ohio State's going to be there. I'm just upset that they're not playing all the games, which is why I think is why I'm trying to tie this in.
Right.
Because Ohio State loves to look really crappy, late in the year, and then you combine that with the fact that I saw an Indiana game where they just showed everybody how to beat Ohio State, and it's just make their quarterback be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think Northwestern... Well, honestly, Notre Dame, Clemson, I think, to an extent, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think that, because we're talking about, the Clemson blowout or the Notre Dame win,
sure.
I think Northwestern has a much better chance of beating Ohio State than Clemson does beating Notre Dame by 60.
Well, and I think the reason why I stand behind that is I think Northwestern is such an overlooked program.
Well, Pat Fitzgerald, bro. That's why I stand by it.
Right. And the thing is, you look at Ohio State, and we mentioned, you mentioned, they're prone to that blowout loss. Let's go back a few years when they missed the playoff thanks to a big big loss to Purdue
Yeah.
in the regular season. That absolutely ruined them for the playoff. And so we cannot make assumptions about the season. I get it. They've only played 5 games, which is going to be...
Who knows what would have happened,
Who knows
right?
what happened? And yes, I get it. It's significantly less than R9. It's significantly less than Alabama's 10, soon to be 11. It's significantly less games played. So it's not a fair assessment to say, hey, we can assume they were going to win the rest of their games because you have to play them.
Well, then let's sit here, and I thought this has been one of my favorite talking points, is there's a bit, and I've said this a million times, I get it, life ain't fair.
Right.
But, and let's just say, for this talking point,
right.
that you're going to put the Big Ten and the SEC on the same plane as far as, how tough the games are and just the physical, brutal nature of the football games.
Sure.
You played almost played 50% of the games the other ones did. So the wear and tear in the program, the conditioning, all this other crap, that you haven't had to go through a full season. So you're going to play a half season and get to play for it all not saying it was your fault necessarily, but you can't sit there and say, whoa, but it's not their fault, so they should get in. But they didn't play the games. And there does come a wear and tear factor, and we all see it in every conference every year by like game 8 or game 9, game 10, and even the crappy non-conference games, you get injuries and guys get nicked up.
And you're tired.
And they just haven't had to do it.
Yeah.
So they have all of this garbage energy, almost lost to Indiana. I'm telling you right now, I could never root for Notre Dame anyways. So I will be the biggest Northwestern fan on Saturday.
Same here.
And if it takes Ohio State a last-minute touchdown to beat Northwestern, that's a win, man.
That is a huge
an
win.
absolute win.
Huge
Because
win.
Notre Dame, Clemson, the only way that it's 100% positive for us if Notre Dame wins by more than a touchdown.
And that's just it. I think that was something I had to consider in regards to Notre Dame and Clemson. I think a Notre Dame win is not enough. I think it has to be...
It'll be like 7.
It's got to be that, and I think not just 7. I think it needs to be 7, and like Clemson had to score late to make it get to 7.
No, well, I mean, or it's 7, and Notre Dame had the time to kneel on the ball and run the drive out.
Right.
It didn't score.
But
it's, again, optics in the eye test.
Right.
But what I'm looking at is Notre Dame, as long as they can win by 7 or more, and I don't care if, Clemson scores and Notre Dame has 5 minutes left, if they just choose to chew clock and end the game, that's a convincing win as well.
Yes.
And again, convincing, and I get that, but it is. So Clemson, basically at that point, they were down 14, came back to 7, and you were able, as a team, to chew the clock up.
That's
and win the game, because I think that's just as convincing as anything else. And I get the argument that, well, Clemson's backup quarterback threw for 500 some odd yards or 1 million, but you know what?
Right.
It's because he had to.
Yeah, it's a shootout. You have to throw the ball.
You're not. Some dude's not going to run for 500 yards in a game. So,
No.
So again, I don't know. You want to talk about? Where we're going to go next?
Well, I wanted to touch on a couple other surprises in the rankings.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then let's get to that.
So something I found really interesting: Cincinnati fell several spots. Again, like they were all the way down to 9. Absolutely. I mean, the fact that they have been playing. Again, I know they missed out this past week, but the fact they got hurt and the rest of us really didn't, as far as not playing games, I thought was kind of wild.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, and I think, and again, because of COVID, we have a lot of games that haven't occurred, so there's more time to look at the games that have played for the committee.
Right.
So, and again, I really hope that they're doing their due diligence, and I try to be optimistic in that they are, and it seems like they are when you drop Cincinnati. And whether look, if you're a Cincinnati Bearcat fan, I'm sorry, but if you actually look at the games and you look at who they're playing, and then you look at who they played and how they are, the reality is, look, man, playing or not, maybe they just had an extra week to look at their resume and actually watch games. And I'm not saying Cincinnati's bad at all, but
I don't think they're better than Florida or Georgia.
They're just not. It's just a different caliber. You can win a lot of games, but when you start thinking about head-to-head matchups with programs that recruit the way that the Power 5 recruit, there's no way that you can jump them just because their record's better. It's like UCF, they claim themselves national championships and they played nobody.
I mean, yeah, granted, you got the best of an Auburn team that pretty much phoned it in the playoff afterward. Well, in the New Year's Six Bowl.
Well, and if you
that doesn't mean anything.
If you want to talk to a fan base that is finally starting to possibly realize things like that, talk to the Sips and have them revisit how happy they were beating Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, clearly.
They phoned it in, and it sucks, and I wish teams wouldn't do it, and we all wish that, they would go through the bowl game, but the further we get through this and the more we start to realize that these players, need some support and they need, to have their own interests, just as important as universities. It's okay that you have some players opting out. I get it. Like and I've seen it. Like, what are you going to play in the Cheez-It Bowl to tear your ACL? So
right.
I get it.
Well, no, and I totally get it. And I think part of what would honestly help that, and it's been a topic of discussion, especially this year with everything going on, and I'm sure it's been talked to for death for virtually many people. But I believe that an expanded playoff is not the worst idea, strictly from the idea, if you want to expand it to 8 and see what happens, I think that has some intriguing merit, especially when you look at a situation like you have this season. Or let's go down the line. Let's go, a couple years here in the future. And we're sitting and we have 5 teams, all Power 5 champions are undefeated. Who gets left out? There it lies the problem.
Well, see, and you said let's go down the road, and I started to think, like, whoa. I think, and again, nobody cares what I think necessarily, but I think I make good points.
Sure.
I think you and I are on the same page. 8 teams, so that includes all 5 Power 5 conference champions.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter if you suck, you get in. Where you rank, like just because you're Power 5 doesn't mean you'll be one of the top 5.
No, you'll probably be 8 if you're
if you're USC or Iowa State.
Right. Yeah. Let's just take this season as an example.
Or it would be Oklahoma, because if Iowa State won, they'd be 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you take the Power 5 champions.
Right.
You have 3 at larges. So then we don't have to talk about this whole Coastal or Cincinnati thing.
No.
Now, I get that no matter how much you expand, you'll always the 9th team will complain,
and then the 17th team will complain.
Right. But I think 8 works, and this is where you and I are on the exact same page. First round on campus, you earn the revenue.
Amen. And that's the way, honestly, it should be. I think the prospect of playing a postseason game on campus is just the coolest thing to me.
Well, and the March Madness has expanded a jillion times.
Sure.
I think the play-in games, what is it, like 64 through 68 or whatever it is?
Yeah.
I think those should be on campus.
I think that would be on campus.
Why not? Dude, organizing a basketball game is way easier than organizing a football game.
And the kids would love that. I mean, I think one thing that I will give a lot of credit, let's just take this year as an example, the games that we currently have. So let's just go ahead and say Notre Dame and include them as an ACC team, because they are this year.
They are. And by all rules. It's not like the Big
Right.
Ten where they tried to sneak shit around.
No.
We all knew that Notre Dame was going to play football in the ACC this year.
Right.
And I had no problem with that.
No.
None.
So let's just say everything holds true. And let's say Notre Dame's number 2 ranking is valid. So as you go on and the results happen as they should based on the rankings, that the higher ranked team should beat the lower ranked. You would have a number 1 Alabama, number 2 Notre Dame, number 3...
Hold on, no. Give me the matchups. 1-8.
Well, right now, all of a sudden 1-8 becomes Alabama-Cincinnati.
Why not? Alabama high-flying.
Right.
And Cincinnati I won't say they have a puncher's chance, but they won't stop throwing punches until,
Right.
Rocky throws the towel in.
Right. And then your second round, you would have Notre Dame up against Georgia, which
I would love to see that game now that Georgia's figured out that they had a quarterback.
Right. Okay, and let's say Florida falls out. So you'd have a number 7 Iowa State playing Ohio State, because I think Ohio State moves up.
Wait, who plays Ohio State?
It would be Iowa State. So Cyclones, Buckeyes.
See, my question is, maybe Georgia gets bumped because Florida only loses by 6 points to Bama.
So let's say,
But whatever. Florida or Georgia, I would love to see that against Notre Dame.
Against Notre Dame.
All right, so
right.
Iowa State against
Ohio State in this situation.
Sure.
Why not? And then that leaves your 4 and your 5 being Texas A&M and Clemson, which we've already seen. That could be an interesting game. It has been.
No, we haven't seen it without Clemson having literally an all-world, all-NFL defensive line.
True.
Which they don't have anymore.
Well,
so we kind of do.
We kind of do. And I think, especially if, let's say, Clemson loses that game, A&M jumps them at the 4, so we would host a playoff game.
Host Clemson at Kyle
Field in the postseason. So that's just based on the rankings as it would stand today. And that would allow. I say that, but at
let's
the same time,
let's say OU and Iowa State are interchangeable. Because I'm telling
we
you,
left a team out that we needed to consider.
Coastal.
No, USC because of the Power 5. So,
okay,
but they're 13th.
Okay,
so I would say you put USC at 8, Cincinnati at 7.
So Bama, USC.
Bama, USC.
I don't care what the line is. I'm taking Bama.
Well, I would take Bama too, but still.
No, it could be. I'm telling you, like in a playoff game, 28.5. I'll take Bama.
Yeah, and I completely agree. But at that point, that gives you your conference champ in the game. And once again, I think that makes the conference championship matter.
Right.
Which nowadays it feels like it doesn't necessarily help you or so much hurt you. I mean, for example, a few years ago, let's just look at that 2017 situation with Auburn, who had beaten Georgia and Alabama in consecutive weeks, who were both number 1 at the time. They go into the SEC championship and lose to Georgia and fall out. And had they not played that championship game, they would have had, rightfully so, been in the playoffs.
So here's my question, and this kind of alludes back to March Madness. So the playoff, the play-in games aren't for the 16 seed, right? You know, they're for actually a higher seed than the 16. The play-in games
well, they would technically be the 16th. They would earn the 16th seed.
But what I'm saying is, right. So you have P5 and G5, right? That's 10.
Right.
All right. So now what you have is 10 slots with 2 play-in games. 8.
I don't hate that.
Oh, why would you?
I don't hate that at all.
Why? Gosh, why would you?
I mean, if you're in the top 12,
what you're concerned about is getting into the NFL playoffs,
right?
Because again, it's all money. It always has been. So then the question is, do you do the play-in? Then it's not a G5 play-in; it's a ranking play-in.
It would be a ranking.
Notre Dame might have to go to Coastal Carolina to play in.
I mean, how fun would that be? I mean, could you imagine like a Coastal Carolina who in any other year would never host Notre Dame in a football game?
Right. But what I'm saying, just in general, like any year, like you have a UCF that loves to claim, fake national championships and say that everybody was scared to play them, even though they didn't play anybody, and they played a crap-ass Auburn team in the bowl, so they claimed national championship. Like, okay, well, how about this? How about we play when something's on the line? Because outside of the college football playoff, the rest of the games, and I get the New Year's Six and the importance,
and those are fun, but
man,
they don't matter.
Exactly. You have players. If they mattered, no one would opt out.
I'd say if they mattered, Texas would have actually gained something from that Sugar Bowl win,
and they did,
Georgia, which they didn't.
So the New Year's Six is great. I think they've been kind of bastardized by the college football playoff.
Oh, no doubt. And
so what you do is you set again, and when you have these playing games on campus. So I mean, there are a ton of logistics that go into this. Do you stay at a 12-game season? Do you? I mean,
I've seen arguments to drop it to 10.
Do you not give it? Well, I'm okay with why give an
12.
extra week heading into the conference championship? Why?
Right.
Like you've either played this person or you haven't, but you had a week to prepare for every other opponent. So why give them 2 weeks?
Right.
I will never. It's not a Super Bowl. You don't need 2 weeks to prepare for a conference championship. Do the film, play the game, and win or don't. So if you take that week out, then that week's the play-in game.
Right.
Right?
Well, and the thing is, you look at the play-in game as just as an idea, which goes back to the topic that we started this whole thing with, which is why we play the game. I think it's important to play the games.
Exactly.
And you got to earn your way in there. Earn your way in there.
Well, and if the games matter, you won't see the opting. Look, and again, I don't mind somebody opting out so they don't play in the Alamo Bowl. I get it. Like if you're looking at the first or second round kind of pick for yourself, and as much as fans want to think, these players love their university, but they love their career more, and then that's okay.
No, it's absolutely
okay.
Fine. Yep.
Like if they man, the dudes that love A&M are awesome, but when they're like, look, I love A&M, but I've got to go start preparing for the draft. It's not just to turn your back on the team thing. It's look, the liability of getting injured in a meaningless bowl game. Yeah, these kids are getting smarter because we're giving them more power.
Well, and
I think that's important.
Well, yeah, and all it is honestly, you look at bowls at this point, and the fact that they had gotten so big is just literally it's turned into bragging rights. Hey, I won my game. You didn't.
It's swagging money.
Yeah,
I love these stats where like they won their last 6 bowl games. I'm like,
who gives a crap?
Dude, 4 of them were the Sun Bowl. Like,
I was about to say, you congratulations, Texas A&M. You know, you played in the Gator Bowl, you've played in the Texas Bowl, you've played in the Music City Bowl, you know, and Belk Bowl, whatever. You know, these are all games that, yes, they get played, but at the end of the day, they just simply do not matter.
And this is why they matters, because of revenue. It has nothing to do about the players. It has very little to do with the schools, other than their one or two commercials in timeouts, and it's extra money. And I mean, no, don't get me wrong. Like, swag for the players is cool.
Oh, it is cool.
Even if you didn't have a great season, you get to go somewhere. You get to play one more game.
Well, I mean, you look at a lot of these kids. They get to go play the Boca Raton Bowl. They get to go out to Hawaii. You know, places they've never been.
Well, even
cool.
even bowl games that we think like just by sponsor are lame. Some of those swag bags and stuff they get it's really cool. It's really awesome.
Cool, and the activities are fun.
But the reality is, especially in this year, but hopefully this year can be, let's look at why we're doing this. Let's make the bowl games mean more. And I know there were 43 bowls at one point, and so I get that. I understand the revenue stream of it. I really do. I get that money will drive this machine for as long as the players have the little power that they do.
Right.
So the opting out of bowl games to prepare for the draft and things like that it's something that so many just I say fans because it's short for fanatics.
Right.
The complete freak wagons that are so upset that a person who has in their pinky more athletic ability than you have ever had in your life. You're mad that they're not going to play for your school. But I get it. I really do get it. And I think it's important that we understand that these are business decisions for them.
They are.
Well, I went to A&M. I got my degree. I love A&M. I play for them. Well, you didn't. You weren't on the team. You went to A&M and you were on the academic team. And you went to go get a degree to go do things in life. Go do things in life that had nothing to do with football, unless you're like a sports management or whatever. But even then,
hey, that's me.
But you didn't put your butt on the line.
No, I didn't.
6 days a week, in an incredibly physical sport that we are still evaluating and reevaluating as a society relative to its long-term effects on the body.
Right.
And like how? I mean, let's be honest. Did your knees really give out having to walk to Blocker 3 times a week?
Zero chance.
Get over yourself. I mean, look. I mean, the mental depression of going to Blocker, I get.
No, we get it now. And that hill afterwards is just not fun.
No, just looking at Blocker is depressing.
Yes.
But at the same time, schedule everything in the basement of Blocker, so on rainy days you have a day off.
Yes.
But
back to our point.
But it's I understand if they don't want to play in like the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl. I do. I really do. If they have the prospect to truly go high in the draft, or even look, if you're getting drafted, you're getting paid.
Right.
Right. It means that NFL scouts who are better than NCAA recruiting scouts.
Right. Well, and I understand. And the thing is, I hate the argument that the guys will make, such as like, hey, I hope people are paying attention that he opted out of the game, so he's not a team player. He doesn't support his teammates. That's why he left. And the thing is, I don't care for that because, like I said, college is, for most athletes that want to get to that next level, it is a stepping stone. Yes, a lot of these students, they will come back. They will contribute to their school. You look at like a Von Miller type, right? Von Miller loved Texas A&M. He has done nothing but support A&M on the back end. And that's fantastic, and we absolutely love the fact that he did that. But that's not to say that another athlete that went to school here who left early with the intention of going to the NFL, he's in any worse of a position because he's doing it strictly because A&M is a stepping stone to get to that next spot.
Couple things. Yeah. One, I think as we become a bigger program, you see a lot more. Well, you know what? Not a bigger program. A bigger program because of the coaching and the sports staff.
Established.
You will see more former players just root and recruit and love A&M. Okay,
it's kind of a, and I hate to use this as an example, but kind of a Miami U situation. You look at a lot of those players, and they absolutely went back to the U.
Oh, I heard something on Oh gosh, ESPN Radio or some crap yesterday or the day before. No, excuse me. It was Sunday morning.
Right.
That's when I catch my ESPN Radio because I was going to drill.
Yeah.
And Keyshawn Johnson was advocating for USC to be in the playoffs. Well, no shit. Keyshawn played at USC.
Big deal.
So,
right.
but again, Keyshawn is on television. He's on national television
right.
as a football kind of talking head.
Right.
And Von Miller really was the dude. And bro, chickens are dope, man.
That chickens are dope.
They are. I had eggs and chicken fajita meat for breakfast this morning.
That was one of my favorite shirts that ever came out.
The chickens are dope. Absolutely.
I love that shirt.
But what Vaughn did for A&M, we really hadn't seen before. Because I think of the very few great players that we've had, like great players in the NFL. So you had Ray Childress. Every Aggie knew he was an Aggie, but everybody else was like, man, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, Dante Hall Slash.
Right. He was very good.
He was pretty good about. Oh no, he was the greatest return man.
No doubt.
But he was pretty good about talking about A&M. Von Miller was one of the, if not the first that I can remember, first NFL player with a lot of spotlight because he ended up being not only was
Super
he good
Bowl
here,
MVP,
but he was just funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that dude lives, eats, and breathes Texas A&M. And that almost opened the door to where you see even Myles Garrett he's bigger about promoting Texas A&M from time to time. And what you need as a program is proof of the afterlife. Like when you're done with college, you can play pro ball, be really successful, and still love A&M.
And still love your school.
So it's these little things bit by bit that we start to see. Mike Evans is a wonderful proponent of Texas A&M.
Sure.
And not to mention an all-pro for every year.
Yes.
When you build a good program, and then if you have to hire a new coach, it is what it is. But you're starting to build a great culture at that great good program. That's when you start to see the dominoes fall.
Right.
Yeah, dude. If you're Deion Sanders, how easy is it to recruit? I mean,
right.
So it's
you're an established player at that next level. It's real easy to say, hey, I did real well, but you know what got me there?
You just got to let everybody know where it came from.
You got to let them know where it came from.
And so, and not that they, and not to knock on their coaches from when they were here, but what they're seeing is one, a more inviting culture here at A&M in the locker room and
which it
the
has
field
been.
house,
right?
And two, success,
which we are starting to see.
It's a building process.
It is.
This year, like I get people wanting to knock 2020. Well, in general, I get it. But these results and these games and blah, 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 and the conference schedules. And so there's a lot of things that you can pick apart relative to college football in 2020. But what you can't pick apart is the fact that we've taken care of business outside of the Bama game.
Right.
And we lost by 4 touchdowns at Bama. And
we get it.
That.
They were the best team in the nation for good reason.
And Bama's average margin of victory is 32 point something points. I looked at earlier. So I guess we were under the bar. But the reality is we are building something that nobody wants to hear about. The SIPs sure as hell don't want to hear about it.
And you're seeing it on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're seeing it everywhere. OU is just trying to deal with it because they're not quite as close. LSU has their own fires to put out, so you haven't seen a whole lot of LSU people address what we're building this year.
Right.
Because LSU has completely fallen apart.
Regionally, it's safe to say that Texas A&M has, there's a great article about it on ESPN. I know we don't give ESPN a lot of kudos, a lot of credit, but there was a great article that said regardless of what happens in the playoff this year, Texas A&M has set themselves up for long-term success.
Right. We're building something special.
And we're seeing it.
And it kind of reminds me, as an Astros fan, when we hired the dudes that got canned, unfortunately, for cheating. But what they didn't cheat in was building the farm system.
Yes.
And I remember there were years ago, they had a picture of George Springer on the cover of, I think it was like SI, like, could the Stros be the team to beat in 2017?
Yeah, the year they did it.
And it had nothing to do with the talent that was currently on the field. It had to do with the talent that they were building in this farm system in baseball. Right. And let's be honest, college football is a farm system for
the NFL.
For the NFL, but within your own program, your
doubt.
ability to recruit and also maintain those recruits. Again, in today's world of the transfer portal and the opt-outs and all this stuff, which again, I'm a huge fan of putting power in the players' hands.
Right.
Because you'll see, I'm a firm believer, and we saw it a little bit, an influx of bad decisions and then an influx of wait and see, decisions. And I think what we're starting to see is it even out. There are kids bolting from programs that either it's in their best interest or it's in the program's best interest, and they understand that.
And I'm not going to criticize a kid. But maybe it's just something that's something that they have been told. There
are some decisions in life that these 18, 19, 20-year-olds are making. That's none of your damn business.
It's true.
So, but we've given them the power to make the decisions that are best for their life and their career. And who are we to say that some of these kids aren't bolting for academic reasons as well? Look, I can play really well, but I need something a little bit more academically. And I get it. People will slough off at that, and they'll slag that off as some sort of garbage. Yeah, like they care about academics. If they didn't care about academics, you wouldn't see these kids graduating in 3.5 years and playing basically finding a grad program so they can continue to play.
Right.
Like you don't. I mean, did you get your degree in 3.5 years? Did you get it in 4? So again. And by the way, did you do it while being a scholarship athlete?
Well, and having to travel and all that other craziness that you just have to do. I mean,
having to be at the Chicken at 8:30 every night for 3 hours,
right,
is a little bit different than them actually having to be at practice,
right,
for 3 hours. So just
right, and that's the whole deal. I mean, I look at Texas A&M and just kind of have the program as it stands, and I think regardless of what happens this weekend, and we know there are going to be a number of different results, a number of different ways this whole thing could play out. I just think it is so stinking cool that Texas A&M is now sitting here going into the final week in prime position to potentially take a playoff spot, and that is a cool spot to be in.
Well, I just think it's hilarious because, all the arguments about Ohio State and whether we're 4 or 5, this, that, if we're losing LSU, there's a jillion different talking points. When's the last week you can remember us not being a part of the national
conversation? Yeah, no, as much as they don't want to mention us in the conversation, we are in it.
They have to. Yeah. And unless you're Art Briles, any publicity is good publicity.
Right. And the thing is, you look at the playoff rankings, you look at the strength of schedule, you look at all the factors.
The adjusted whatever. And even that adjusted garbage metric didn't go the way they wanted. It's hilarious. They just won't address their own metric.
They can't address the metric because, frankly, Texas A&M does not fit the mold of what they want. You look at the established teams, and you look at the playoff as it has stood up to this point. You look at the teams that have made it. I've been down that list, but you look at it's Alabama, Georgia, LSU have all made it at this point. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Notre Dame.
It's the blue blood programs, right?
Well, yeah. Only 2 non-blue bloods have made it. You know which 2 those are?
I guess Auburn.
Auburn has never made it. You've had 2 teams that have made the playoff.
That was BCS.
Yeah,
right.
There were 2 teams that have made the playoff that were not "quote unquote" blue bloods. One was that 1 year Washington did it.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was that 1 year that Michigan State did it.
Oh, that's right.
I completely forgot about Michigan State making it, But the thing is, in general, when it comes to the playoff, the teams that you expect to be there now are Clemson's, Alabama's, Ohio State's, Notre Dame's.
Yeah, Notre Dame's.
And you could even throw the Georgias and the Floridas in there. You can, or hell, and I hate to use the word, but if Texas was at that point, you could throw Texas in there.
Well, the problem is Texas is no longer a blue blood. And
there's arguments to say they never were.
Well, they never were, but they're just not. And so you have OU, which is the blue blood. Because Big 8, Big 12, I mean, how many Big 12 championships does OU have to win before they realize that conference is doo-doo?
Oh, I mean, I have a very strong feeling they're going to win another one Saturday. As much as I like Iowa State, Oklahoma's been there.
And that would be the perfect example of the Big 12 is the fact that they would somehow accidentally knock out Iowa State.
Right. It's pretty wild how that would play out. So my point being, you look at these blue blood programs, they're the ones that really drive that revenue stream that you expect out of what the playoff is looking for. And I think that right there is just the biggest argument against A&M, more so than our record.
Well, again, I understand the blue blood, like kind of erring on the side of the blue bloods, but I can also see the other side of it. So we look at blue bloods, and let's go back to maybe talking about the expanded playoff. So the Pac-12's got to go, right?
Right.
Who is your blue blood out of the Pac-12?
Well, I mean, you would have to say either. I would say USC.
You get one.
USC.
USC, right?
Right.
When's the last time USC really was relevant?
2005-06.
Okay, exactly. When's the last time Oregon was relevant?
2014.
Right. So wouldn't Oregon, in theory, be more of a blue blood because they've continuously put up good seasons. They've had no sort of weird Sark after dark, coach firing, anything of that. USC hasn't been a great program, but Oregon has relative to Concord.
Oregon, I would say, is the most relevant program in the Pac-12. They are not a blue blood.
I think they're a blue blood because Nike has the money to make them a blue blood, though. And again, if it's all about money, and we know that Nike and Oregon are just attached to the hip, when USC doesn't play well, they don't get any love from the Pac-12. In fact, when USC and UCLA play poorly in a season, they are meant to be a punchline and a talking point of how the mighty have fallen. But then everybody loves Oregon, flashy uniforms. They've played well.
Sure.
National championship.
Contention.
Right. Well, if you're in the game, you're in contention.
Yeah, you're in contention.
So, but again, the last time USC did that, they tackled Vince Young and his knee was down, but it wasn't, and then he scored. So that was literally like the Reggie Bush days.
Right. So the Pac-12, unfortunately, I say unfortunately.
They just don't have a blue blood anymore.
They really don't. And you've got the classic, they say, we build champions or whatever, and that's great.
How long is it taking you to build one? Good Lord, I can put a house up in 9 months.
Right. It's just like these guys over here in the Pac-12. There's just a reason, like I said, they're not that program, and they just never, and they won't be for a long time simply because of where the recruits are going.
Well, and then I think an important thing to mention on this, and again, because money, right? Money. Everybody talks about the Pac-12 after dark. Bro,
nobody cares.
Nobody east of El Paso cares about the Pac-12 after dark. So they need to start playing 7 a.m. local time games, or nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
And that's what nobody seems to understand. I am as diehard of a college football fan as you will ever find. And I just don't care about what happens in the Pac-12 unless it's an undefeated match. Like, it has to be something worth watching as opposed to a game that's on.
Right. You're not going to catch me watching, you're not going to catch me watching the Territorial Bowl between Arizona and Arizona State. You're not going to catch me watching the Battle of L.A. unless it just happens to be on at the bar.
Well, yeah. Like, if USC and UW are playing and they're both undefeated, I'm going to watch it.
Sure.
If USC and UW are playing, they're both one-loss teams, but it's 10:30 when they're kicking off.
Right.
Like, bro, I would rather watch reruns of South Park.
Right. Well, and the only other thing I think you can throw in there was if you go back, when you had game day in Pullman, Washington, and you had Mike Leach, and they took down USC, and it was a whole big hoopla. But those are absolutely unicorns on the West Coast versus what you get on a weekly basis in this part of the country.
I believe the phrase is days gone by.
Right.
Yeah, just the Pac-12 has situated themselves, and this year it was, and again, I don't blame anybody for what's happened with COVID. There's no blame to play. This is COVID.
It's COVID. Sucks.
If you just decide you want to play the games, Texas and Kansas. If you decided you just didn't want to play the games because your little boo-boo looked about football because you suck.
Right.
If
don't want to risk that loss.
Right. Well, you have the hand you were dealt, and,
right.
and then you combine that, especially California, Northern California, with the fires. There were things that were completely out of your control, everyone else's control, so you played what you could. So I totally understand that. But the problem is it's not this year. It's the last 5 years. Nobody gives a shit about the Pac-12.
No, Pac-12, just football is not there. And it has not been there for a while.
And what's crazy is the Pac-12 and the Big Ten may as well be the same conference because nobody gives a shit about the Big Ten. The Big 12.
Well, yeah, the Big 12. And I think you look at the Big 12, and it's just wild because it literally is the OU conference.
If you don't go undefeated in the Big 12, you might be on the outside looking in. Like, you could literally lose one game. If you're OU, you beat the Sips, you drop a game that you're not supposed to because OU loves to do that.
Right.
And you go back and beat the Sips again in the conference championship, you may not make the playoffs, and you're a one-loss team.
Well, and you may not make the playoff, and it all depends on how the other games played out. And that's just it. You have dominant conferences right now, really two conferences that are kind of pulling the weight. And that is the SEC and ACC.
But Big Ten gets the blue blood love, though.
Well, and they'll get the blue blood love and football the way it was supposed to be played, and fight songs and tradition, and that's exactly what the Big Ten is.
That's literally what the ACC. Yeah, that's all the Big Ten is.
That's all the Big Ten is, and the thing is, the ACC is like a step down, honestly, from the SEC as far as what they bring to the table. You don't have as many flashy programs, and unfortunately, one of your flashy programs is kind of in the dirt right now. Florida State. Not
Well,
going their way.
I'll say this about the ACC though.
Right.
Just name brand wise, because we all, I mean, if you're old enough, you kind of revert back to the old school,
Sure.
the Big East and all that stuff. Miami's still a name.
They are.
They really are. And had they not gotten absolutely napalmed by UNC,
yeah,
they're in the mix at least for a big bowl game. North Carolina, we all remember because of basketball. We're like, yeah, sure, it's UNC, baby.
Go for it, right? Yeah.
And Mac Brown has got that. He's got that program at least on the right trajectory. He does.
Right.
So the ACC, it was weird this year because you had some programs that are normally decent kind of suck.
Right. I mean, you had Clemson that was good, but Virginia Tech wasn't great.
VTech is one of those pesky programs that wasn't pesky this year.
Right.
Syracuse sucked, but they were pesky enough, and that's kind of their job. Like win 4 or 5 games, but piss off the good guys.
But Pitt, Boston College, you just felt like there were so many teams that just didn't. Wake Forest. I mean, they just weren't there.
Well, and I'm gonna close all my points tonight with this.
Right.
The accusation from outside of the important conferences. So you can the Big Ten, the ACC, and the SEC are the important conferences.
All right.
So the accusations from those other conferences, man, they're just so top heavy. And I'm gonna tell you right now, look, I'll just put them on blast. I've never heard anybody from the Pac-12 talk about anything being top heavy.
No.
So the Big 12 and all you little minions that suck and just aren't good at football and have terrible programs currently want to start talking about the other conferences being top heavy. You guys aren't even top heavy this year.
No,
you have ISU and OU playing in a conference championship that may as well be played at 9 in the morning because nobody gives a shit.
Right. It's not a money revenue game. It's certainly not relevant for a playoff position.
Iowa State would have to beat OU by 90.
And even then,
they still need some help ahead of them.
You would still need some help. And see, that's the problem. Iowa State or Oklahoma will probably win that game close. And you're going to be sitting here still on the outside looking in, getting ready to host an SEC team or somebody in the Cotton Bowl.
And OU is the number 10 team in the country.
Right.
Because they're OU.
That's the only reason they're up there.
So it's laughable at the top heavy crap. So nobody knows where the chips are going to fall because nobody knows what happens on Saturday. But Saturday is why we play the damn games.
Right.
And I'm a huge Pat Fitzgerald fan, have been since I watched him play because I'm old and I remember him playing.
Right.
Would there be any greater thing on the planet than Northwestern beating the Buckeyes?
I'd be down with that. I think anybody in maroon would be down with
I think
that.
literally everyone on the planet that doesn't live in Columbus would be down with Northwestern beating Ohio State.
So let me ask you this. So, let's just go ahead and say, and I know it's not a talking point I would like to end on, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it anyway.
Let's do the what if.
I say, here's my what if. My what if for you, if Texas A&M does not win. Oh, no, A&M wins, but they don't. No. Time out. If Texas A&M does not make the playoff, we're still sitting outside at number 5 for whatever reason. Where do you want to play and who do you want to play against?
I want to play the Orange Bowl, and I don't care who we play. I would love to play Miami, but honestly, if we play in the Orange Bowl, first of all, the Cotton Bowl is overplayed. The problem is if we beat Iowa State, nobody's going to care. No. That may be the least watched New Year's Six ever. We go to the Orange Bowl and play Miami or North Carolina. Mac Brown,
sure,
old Texas coach playing against A&M has got some run. Us playing the Orange Bowl gets some run. If OU beats Iowa State and we end up in the Cotton Bowl against OU, I mean, we've been
there.
It just, and that's the thing. I grew up where the Cotton Bowl was the thing, man. You win the Southwest Conference to go to the Cotton Bowl and then let the chips fall where they may.
Right.
This is one of those things where give me the Orange Bowl and I don't care who we play. I really don't. And if Notre Dame beats Clemson, but somehow we don't get in, give me Clemson in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
All day.
I want that. And I'll tell you, there's one game I really do want. If I can get, and I agree with you on Orange Bowl, give me Cincinnati or Coastal. And let us just beat the absolute hell out of them.
See, that's the catch. Those programs we saw, like, remember the Boise State, OU.
Sure, and that can happen.
Right, but so you don't want it to happen. Again, I'm thinking long-term trajectory. Let's play a program that's not going to throw out gimmicks. They're just going to come play football. because Coastal and Cincinnati will have to throw out every gimmick in the book to win. And sometimes all of those gimmicks can end up in 2 really successful plays, and you end up losing a game. I want to play somebody who's going to line up, play football, and if we're not in the playoff, I want the Orange Bowl, whether it's Clemson or Miami.
And
I would love Clemson.
I think I would love to play Clemson. I would love to play Ohio State. We're not going to get a chance to. Just the way the playoff is all currently formatted, there's just no way that game will happen.
No, Notre Dame and Clemson would have to have a COVID cancellation.
Right, and that's just not going to happen. There's just no way. There's too much money on the line.
These dudes are like locked in their own lockers at this point.
Well, they're going to lock them in the lockers or they're going to fudge numbers. It doesn't matter. COVID's not going to...
Also accurate.
COVID is not going to stop somebody from playing in the playoff. Let's just go with, which is an interesting thought that had never crossed my mind until this exact moment. What if somebody that's ahead of us in the playoff contention does catch COVID for that weekend? It doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to make that game happen.
Oh, well, yes and no, because there is a timeline. Again, we talked about the NFL playoffs. The one scenario I've seen, which is hilarious, and it reminds me of the Big Ten moving all of the goalposts, and I would like to refer to our friends about 90 miles west of here who they have made a profession out of moving goalposts.
Uh-huh.
If Iowa State somehow has a COVID issue and cannot play against OU, it will be Texas.
Yeah.
Texas will somehow backdoor themselves into the Big 12 championship
and win it.
Just in the oddest thing ever, somehow manage to beat OU, even though they're missing all of their captains because they all quit on their team.
Oh, I like where your brain's going here.
So, if for some reason those dipshits in Austin luck themselves into the championship game,
win it,
and Spencer Rattler just decides to not play football, like he plays like I did in middle school if he under center, and the Sips somehow win the Big 12, which would be great for retaining Herman. I might add.
I know.
Then you know what?
I'll play Cotton Bowl.
I'll go to the Cotton Bowl.
I'll play the Cotton Bowl.
I'd be okay with the Cotton Bowl because I don't want to play them again. But if that's how they decide it, I would love to show the country, and we can see it in recruiting. We see it in schedules.
Oh, that'd
we
be
can
huge.
See it literally just in optics of how the programs are run, considering just the shit show that the Sips have put on with their coach hiring, not hiring. Oops, we have to retain this guy.
Right.
Like if you had to get stuck in a game to where you knew the data point would be really in your favor, I'm not advocating for playing the Sips again, but man, if something weird happens and the Big 12 is really weird, give me the Sips in the Cotton Bowl, and I don't care what the line is. I'll bet double the line.
Nice. I think these are just 2 vastly different programs right now.
But again, I want to be in the Orange Bowl. I want to be in the Orange Bowl.
Too.
I think it's great exposure because we haven't been in the Orange Bowl in a bajillion years.
Right.
I think playing what would the ACC would assume was a really good program, we would go in and just smash the snot out of them.
Right.
Just smash them.
Smash them. I think at this point, just as an Aggie, I'm not going to sit here and expect things to fall our direction. They just don't. The universe seems to find a way to not want to do that.
As a still moderately battered Aggie.
As a moderately battered Aggie, we know what the universe tends to do to us. That being said, I'm not gonna hold my Aggies to an expectation that they're gonna make the playoff. I am ready to let myself be pleasantly surprised when they do.
Here's how I look at it. Again, while we play the games, we never know what's gonna happen. As long as we take care of business at Tennessee, and I mean like
business.
TCLB, bro, TCB, take care of business. Like, smash them. We're going to... If we smash them and Northwestern plays Ohio State close, that's going to be tough for them, considering they already admitted that they talked about flipping us in the rankings because of games played. So, here's what it comes down to. Beat the ever-living, ever-loving, fighting Texas Aggies, send them back to grade school hell out of Tennessee, and the rest of it's out of our hands. Again, worst case scenario, bro.
Orange
Cotton or orange.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good with that. Yeah. So
we'll see what happens, man.
It's going to be exciting. This the most, and again, it played out how we hoped it would. We got the 11 a.m. slot.
Exactly.
So we play early and really put our stamp on it because there'll be a lot more people watching that game than I think people want to admit.
Haven't they announced what network it's going to be on yet? I didn't see.
I would guess it's
SEC Network,
SEC
probably?
or ESPN. everybody gets those channels. It ain't like the Longhorn Network, man.
No.
No, it's in every home, everywhere. If they want to watch it, they'll watch it. So yeah. I'm excited for this weekend of football. I'm excited for this weekend of Premier League.
Yes.
But more so, I'm excited for college football. There's 24, 25 matches left in Premier League. There is one game left for A&M to put their final stamp postmark in the mail. Right. Hopefully it's not Elvis style return to sender.
Right. So hey, Jimbo Fisher, Aggies, boys, go out there.
Let's go beat the hell out of Tennessee.
Beat the hell out of Tennessee. Do what you do. That's all. That's all we ask for, and let the chips fall where they may.
The rest of it's out of your hands.
Yep. We believe in y'all.
So gig them, beat the hell out of Tennessee. Hope you guys are getting your Christmas shopping done.
Yes.
You are at the brink of getting stuff ordered and shipped. So I would remind you of that because I had to remind myself of that earlier this morning.
Yeah.
But, we'll be back next week. That's for damn sure. And I think we're going to be back same day, yeah? Let's stay till after the rankings.
The rankings are going to be on Sunday.
Oh, that's right. Okay, perfect. So we'll do Monday night.
And we'll just do it Monday night. And the thing is, I'm not sure if I told you this. I have potential jury duty starting Friday. So, all
right, so I'll be back on Monday.
No. I fully intend to be back. I do want to run home for Christmas, so I think we may just end up having to leave Tuesday, assuming I can get out of jury stuff. If not, I'm just here.
Well, there's no jury stuff, so maybe we can do it Sunday after the rankings.
Yeah, that's entirely possible,
get it done and kick it out. Okay, so maybe we'll do that, and I'll hit him up, and he doesn't know I'm going to hit him up because it's just popped in my head, but maybe we'll bring Jay Arnold on, and we'll talk a little bit about the rankings and how things fall, and so,
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, what an exciting week.
It's a good damn time to be an Aggie.
Again.
And it's fun.
Again, everybody everywhere has been talking about us. And again, like I said, unless you're Art Briles or currently Ed Orgeron, all publicity is good. Or you're also the cleat, the shoe.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, well, hell, gig 'em.
Gig 'em. Y'all have a good one.